All right, we have a surprise guest for you guys.
Surprise. People are like, who is this dude?
So we're going to get serious about blockchain. I know you just had lunch, but just stay with us for a minute. I have Ethen next to me, Ethen Pierce. He's currently director at the Cryptoassets Institute, doing a lot of events around crypto and traveling all around the world, meeting interesting people, doing cool crypto projects. Marcus Swanepoel, co-founder and CEO of LUNO. If you don't have LUNO on your phone, maybe you should check it out. It's a great way to get started with crypto stuff. And then we have Alexis Ohanian, co-founder of Reddit, who was in town, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, I was did a keynote at the Next Web in Amsterdam yesterday, and then came back here to be with my wife and baby, and got the opportunity to come down and talk to you all about crypto, so very happy to be here.
Cool. Maybe let's get started about your personal story about cryptocurrencies. I've been writing about Bitcoin since 2012, I think. Many people got involved last year or in the past 6 months. When was the moment when you realized there was something interesting with blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies in general? Ethen, maybe?
Sure. Hi, bonjour. Hope you're having a good VivaTech. Well, for me, so there's two things. There's the Institute, which is a nonprofit democratizing the business of blockchain through events and content and a bunch of other things. And there's Borderless Ventures, which is a venture capital activity cross-border between Southeast Asia, Europe, and the US. In the past 3 years, I spent a lot of time in Singapore as well. Was with a different venture fund that runs a lot of accelerators in the fintech and insurance space, mostly in Asia. And we've seen for the past 3 years that just a lot of the problems that corporates wanted to solve were things that blockchain technology startups were responding to in terms of their potential answer and solution to that. So that kind of got me into the thing a bit more, but it's really mostly about Singapore because starting, I guess it's probably 2 years now, the Ethereum Foundation really started pushing a lot of stuff in Singapore. And I went to a meetup, I guess 2 years ago now with Vitalik Buterin, who spoke and was just, for 2 hours, he went from, okay, this is what a blockchain is, to this is sharding. And he went everywhere from the beginning to not understanding anything.
And you could follow everything he was saying because sometimes it's a bit hard to keep track.
That was brilliant. He actually managed, it was a brilliant conversation. When you talk to somebody who understands something so deeply that they can explain it so simply, it was fascinating. So that was what really hooked me because that's when I kind of saw where I connected on the idea that TCP/IP is what created all the value of what we see here because it gave us an internet. Blockchain creates the version 2 of all of this. That's when I kind of went, oh, great.
Cool. And Marcus, what's your personal story?
I started in 2013. I was actually living in Palo Alto, coming back from Singapore. And
did you guys know each other in Singapore?
We didn't actually, but we just met today. So I was living in Palo Alto. I worked many years in banking and financial services, and I met my co-founder, who was an engineer at Google. And I think it was just looking, having worked in finance for a long time, having the technology angle as well, and just putting these two things together and seeing, the inefficiencies in the financial system, and there's this exciting new technology that we could use to try and change it. What that outcome was going to be, TBD. But we actually started it then in 2013, and we built the world's first fully integrated crypto system for a major bank in the world in 2013 for Africa's largest bank. And to make a long story short, spent a year or two with the banks, realized the banks were going to move too slow in the space. They got a bit obsessed with blockchain, and then we pivoted to a consumer business, and now we operate digital currency wallets and exchanges in 40 countries around the world, predominantly emerging markets, but also Europe.
Cool. And you, Alexis, you've been busy with Reddit for a while until recently.
Yes.
Seems like a right fit as well because you've been building communities for a while, and cryptocurrencies are so much community-driven.
Absolutely.
When did you get interested in crypto?
So, co-founding Reddit has been helpful for a few reasons, not the least of which has been as an investor. And the platform, because it is a bellwether for so many really nascent, early, especially highly technical communities, r/Bitcoin back in probably 2009, 2010,
wow,
would have been where I was first encountering it. That was actually what motivated us at INITIALIZED, my VC fund, to be the first seed check in a company called Coinbase. Because at the time, Brian Armstrong was really, really passionate about this thing that, there was a strong community on Reddit supporting, talking about, everything from like, hardcore, anarcho, like crypto, wildest dreams, to just even a more practical, like, hey, this might be a better way to do things than certain centralized databases. And to see that nascent community, that organic community there, was a really strong signal that, hey, the very people who are going to make this platform successful are going to be technologists. And if they are motivated and galvanized to create and build and make it valuable, then there's a chance it'll actually be valuable. And so even to this day, I mean, we'll still, looking at, there's a lot of activity now on Telegram, but it's really interesting to see how online communities really are the basis for so many technologies on the blockchain. And if you disregard all the scammy altcoins, which are garbage and I hate them, there really is, like, there are a lot of like pickaxes and shovels that are being built right now that are going to require a community to buy in and use them and build with them. And so that's the part that I'm really excited to spend my time thinking about now.
Do you still have a stake in Coinbase through INITIALIZED, or did you sell your stake?
No, are you kidding? Of course, we're still enjoying that. We are still very, very long on Coinbase.
Cool. Yeah. And what do you think of their what they've been doing for the past 6 months? Do you think they're managing the growth rates properly?
I think so. I have, in 13 years, I've never seen a company grow revenue and profit in the way that they have, and I think there's a challenge right now, and I think the reason all these acquisitions are happening is in part because they need talent, and that is the scarcest resource for all of us as founders.
They don't need money. They need
no,
people,
they don't need
basically.
money, and it's rare to have a tech startup in that position, and so they're taking full advantage of it. And the exciting thing is we're starting to see people who have backgrounds in building product and building business for the masses who are now really taking this seriously and saying, you know what, actually, let me take the skills I've learned shipping, apps to consumers for the last 7 years and take those best practices and actually start building technology in some way affiliated on the blockchain using all those great skills.
And it's interesting, Ethen, what you've been telling me a bit before. You said that there are many technologists thinking about future stuff, what things you could do with blockchain projects over the coming 10 years. But you've been also telling me that today you could actually start projects with companies, governments, and move some stuff over to blockchain technologies.
So I think a lot of the blockchain technologies right now have a huge scale issue. So the public blockchain's been able to solve massive things like, for example, if you want to put every FedEx tracking number onto a blockchain, that's just not going to work right now. But could be fascinating in the future as to how that can solve so many things about cross-border corruption in delivering packages and logistics issues, supply chain stuff. But so you can't do something like that. But you could do something like Sweden did, where you put the entire land title registry onto the blockchain, which means instead of needing notaries, sorry for if there's any notaries, and now you can just look onto the blockchain and you know that I want to sell him a house. He can look and see if I actually own it. When I sell the house, it is now instantly his. I can't sell it to somebody else in the next 15 minutes because we're dealing with a small enough number of transactions that it's scalable. There's a lot of amazing things that are going to happen over the next couple of years for these mid-sized solutions that the blockchain can solve now, especially with corporates, but not necessarily, before we get to the place where the technology is scalable enough to do these massive kind of database issues of just too much transaction content for a blockchain distributed model. But yeah, so there's lots of great stuff now, and that's why I think a lot of blockchain startups have had a hard time raising money, first of all because maybe there's a lot of stuff there that needs to be looked at again before they try to raise money, but a big piece of it is just that they're talking about things that will change the world in 5 years. You're going to spend a lot of money to get there versus there's amazing things that you can solve right now. That's a lot more interesting, I think.
What do you think, Marcus? Do you think financial use cases are not going to work for now because it's not possible to scale blockchain technologies to handle all these transactions? Do you agree that maybe like properties could be listed on a ledger shared by everyone?
We've actually been very outspoken against most of these things, partly because we started off building these systems for major financial institutions. And we really quickly realized that, I mean, there's a lot of legitimate problems like how do you work with deeds of houses in emerging markets or interbank settlement systems or trade finance. But once you dig into the problems, you realize that technology is not really the issue. The issue is often to coordinate between different parties. I mean, a trade finance system is very complex. You're going to have to get, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people to change their behavior. Blockchain is not going to help you in any way there. So, we said about 2 years ago we don't want to be negative on the private database thing. I'm sure maybe in the future something happens. But for better or for worse, in our view, the best use case of a blockchain is a decentralized digital currency such as Ethereum or Bitcoin. So that's our view. I think there's a lot of things that we want blockchain to be, and I can promise you now, if we could solve it, we would do it. But I think, if you look over the past 2 or 3 years, the proof is in the pudding, really. A lot of this stuff is not going to happen in existing industries. I think the success is going to come from when new companies are started, new industries are started, companies like Coinbase and us and blockchain.info building an entire new infrastructure. But to expect the existing infrastructure to move over very quickly or even within 5 or 10 years, I think that's a bit of a tall order.
Let's talk about adoption for a minute, Alexis. You've talked about Telegram, for instance, so many crypto channels on Telegram. Do you think this kind of communication product that could be Reddit as well, with hundreds of millions of users, do they think they are going to be the key to massive adoption in the future?
I think they play a role, but largely among, I would argue, the early adopter community. Even though these platforms are at scale, the amount of time one has to invest to really participate in the communities kind of prohibits most people who are not really, really passionate about the tech. For me, it just comes back to, like so many technologies, it's the user experience. It's is this better, cheaper, faster than what I'm doing today that's going to make this something that consumers are going to want. And right now, speed, for instance, is a huge, huge issue. Just even trying to imagine explaining to my dad how to install MetaMask is just a nightmare. I wouldn't even consider that. But like, there's so much, the layers of friction that exist now are going to continue to be sanded away as better experiences are created, better products are shipped. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what's going to drive the mass adoption, right? Is it better, cheaper, faster? And also I have to confess my own bubble as an American, because one of the things I've come to realize in the last few years in particular, as I've dove more into this world, is what we take for granted in a country with a fairly stable government and a currency that is used worldwide. That for so much of the world, actually, this technology that underlies sort of a value system on a new internet is really special and is really powerful. And actually, for all of its crazy swings in price volatility, actually is more stable than a number of real sort of fiat currencies that exist. And for people who've been so frustrated watching generational wealth disappear because of hyperinflation, like, it's actually kind of plausible to put a massive percentage of your savings in crypto.
And especially because it's been mostly going up for the past year, so
And look, and it is still highly volatile, and this is not financial advice, but I think we're going to see so many gains now that everyone has a computer on them 24/7 in the smartphone world, that as that interface and experience gets better and better for users, we're going to see so much of the world that I think missed out on a lot of the best stuff in the first web are actually going to be leading the way for the sort of Web 3.0 that we're seeing now get built.
Ethen, Samantha in the room is asking a very important question because obviously we're 4 white dudes on stage, and Alexis talked about talent at Coinbase as well. Ethen, you meet a ton of people in the industry. How do you think it's possible to support women in the blockchain industry and to have more female talents?
That's an excellent question. I'm not sure I have a great answer to it. I think the issue is that in a lot of these ecosystems, we need to be. This is actually maybe not really about the blockchain. I think that if we want to see more women in technology, then we need to be going to kids at 3, 4, 5 years old, and whenever a little girl starts to like math, at that moment we say, gosh, that's great. Little girls can love math and be great at it, because that math will turn into an education that becomes about engineering or something else. And I think the problem is is that in a lot of places, like France and elsewhere, we still do that gender identity thing where we push people to one side or the other, and we're pushing people away from math and science. We're pushing women away from math and science early, which means they have to pull themselves back in because they care about it later on. If we fix that earlier, then a generation, which is a long time, but within time we start to see now that we've actually encouraged women from the beginning, that you can become the best people out there we can go back to these pictures from the 40s and 50s where it was all women working on computers. We can go back to that, and I think that that's completely plausible, but I think the problem is we're short-circuiting that conversation in a lot of early education where we're kind of pushing things to one side or the other. I think in an active way, I meet a lot of women who are very interested in blockchain and crypto projects. I haven't seen a lot of female-founded projects, but I've seen a lot of women in the meetups, at the events, and things like that. So I'm not sure why there's a disconnect yet there, but the interest level is there. So yeah, I'm not sure what we have to do to make that turn into female-founded projects, but there's definitely, I see participation around this subject significantly, but I'm not sure what the solution is beyond that to get more women-founded projects out there.
You wanted to add something?
I can maybe just add something small. I mean, our company is nearly 50% women, and a lot of people say, oh, you're so lucky that you have 50% women. And we say, well, we're not lucky because we built this early on in our culture. Our 2 first seed investors were women. The first 2 people on our board were women. So I think what's important is when you build companies, to build this into your culture really early on, to have a culture of equality, that everyone gets a fair shot, and actually look a little bit harder sometimes for different investors, different senior people in the team, even in the founding team. I think if you're already 200, 300 people along, and then you try and change your business culture or try and accommodate for things that doesn't come naturally, it becomes very, very hard. So I think when people start companies, this is part of your founder's toolkit. And you should start thinking about this. And it's not just with gender equality, it goes across many different spectrum. And for us, even building a company where we say, look, we want a product that one day 1 billion people all over the world is going to use, I honestly think that if 1 billion people are going to use the product, our company must look like what the world's going to look like. And that is how we're going to build the best possible companies. And we can already see it in our company at a very small scale.
And Alexis, to ask you a question that is a bit related to this, many people find out about cryptocurrencies through the internet, basically. And they go online, they end up on Reddit, for instance, and I don't know the demo, but it's mostly a male audience, I think.
60,
yeah.
65.
Okay.
But it's
depends on the subreddit, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's also a ton of online harassment. Do you think this is part of the issue when it comes to welcoming women to the?
Oh yeah,
because
100%. I think, my guests here have touched on it too, right? This is a this is like an exacerbated version of the problem that already exists in tech currently, and right, especially to be doing cryptography, right? That is a sort of higher level of requirement in terms of math and in terms of experience and work. And so it just exacerbates the already huge issue that my colleagues have already brought up about the barriers and the things that we do to stop women who get into the funnel and then are just like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore, and leave. And I think, you're right. The first programmers were all women, and Ada Lovelace. We got a lot of OGs that, if there were ever a moment to be building out this network and have a huge impact on the world, it would be now, and it would be around crypto, because the impact that this technology will have will be very wide-reaching and I hate to use the word, but it actually will be very disruptive. And we're just at the start of it. This is like 93 or 94. And at INITIALIZED, we're very fortunate because we have a best-in-class team of partners at our VC fund, and almost half of them are women. And actually, one of our crypto experts, Kim Cutler, she should be on stage here, but she's actually speaking at another conference, and she's in Buenos Aires right now.
And former TECHCRUNCH writer.
Former TECHCRUNCH writer, and she's very well connected into the scene, and is one of the experts at the fund on crypto, and so I think we selfishly want to keep getting access to the best early stage founders, and so it really is in our best interest to have a fund that reflects the tech industry we want, which is the best possible people. And it turns out, yes, like half of them are women. so that this isn't an issue and this isn't a legacy that continues into the new web, because it's definitely one that exists already now.
So we only have 30 seconds left. I'm going to ask you a quick yes/no question to all of you. Do you think the next 12 months are going to be as good as the past 12 months for the cryptocurrency industry as a whole? Yes or no?
Big yes, but too much to answer behind the yes.
Okay.
Yes, but this is not financial advice.
Yeah, and don't get suckered into the currency swings. I think yes, it will be good and even better because we're really seeing competent teams starting to build the infrastructure, like build, not hodl, but biddle, is really I think the theme of the next year, and that's really important because it'll actually build the things that will help us get to where we want to go.
All right, thank you very much for joining me.